On a bitter winter evening in Seoul's Gangnam district, Maya Thompson wiped down the marble bar counter for what felt like the 100th time that shift. The upscale restaurant where she worked hummed with the quiet conversation of wealthy patrons, their designer suits and glittering jewelry a stark contrast to her simple black uniform. As an American woman working in South Korea, Maya had grown accustomed to being invisible, just another face serving drinks and clearing plates. But tonight felt different somehow. The air seemed heavier, charged with an energy she couldn't quite name. Then the front doors burst open, and 15 men in dark suits flooded into the restaurant like a shadow sweeping across the floor. Before anyone could scream, Maya saw their hands move toward concealed weapons, and her blood turned to ice. She had no idea that the next 5 minutes would transform her from an unknown waitress into a legend whispered about in Seoul's criminal underworld for years to come. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from, and make sure to subscribe because we have more incredible stories coming your way. Maya had been working at the Lotus Garden restaurant for 8 months. It was not the life she had imagined when she left Atlanta 3 years ago, but it paid the bills and allowed her to stay in South Korea while she figured out her next move. At 29 years old, she had come to Seoul chasing a teaching opportunity that fell through within weeks of her arrival. Too proud to return home and admit defeat, she had cobbled together a life from odd jobs and eventually landed this position at one of the city's most exclusive dining establishments. The Lotus Garden sat on the fifth floor of a gleaming tower in the heart of Gangnam, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a spectacular view of the Seoul skyline. The restaurant catered to a very specific clientele: business executives, politicians, celebrities, and, if the whispered rumors among the staff were true, members of organized crime families who appreciated the establishment's discretion and privacy. Maya never asked questions. She poured drinks, served meals, smiled politely, and collected her pay. Her Korean had improved dramatically over the past year, though she still struggled with some of the more nuanced conversations. Most of the regular customers barely acknowledged her existence, beyond a curt nod or a dismissive gesture when they needed something. There was one exception. Mr. Park Jin-ho came to the restaurant every Friday evening without fail. He always sat at the same corner table, always ordered the same meal, and always left an extraordinarily generous tip. He was a man in his early 50s with graying temples and sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to catalog everything around him. He dressed impeccably in tailored suits that probably cost more than Maya made in 6 months. He rarely spoke beyond giving his order, but when he did, his voice carried a quiet authority that made even the restaurant's arrogant manager defer to him instantly. Maya had served Mr. Park countless times over the months. He was always polite to her in a way that felt genuine rather than performative. He would thank her in English, his accent thick, but his effort sincere. Sometimes he would ask her how she was doing, and he seemed to actually listen to her answers. It was a small thing, but in a place where she often felt like a ghost, his simple courtesy meant more than he probably realized. She had no idea who Park Jin-ho really was. She did not know that he controlled one of the most powerful crime syndicates in Seoul. She did not know that his organization oversaw everything from high-end gambling operations to complex financial schemes that moved millions of dollars across international borders. She did not know that he was both feared and respected throughout the criminal underworld, a man who had risen to power not through brutality alone, but through strategic brilliance and an ironclad code of honor. All Maya knew was that he was kind to her when few others were. The evening of December 23rd started like any other Friday. Maya arrived at the restaurant at 4 in the afternoon, changed into her uniform, and began preparing the bar area for the dinner service. The holiday season meant the restaurant was fully booked, every table reserved weeks in advance. The kitchen staff moved with practice efficiency, and the other servers rushed about making sure every detail was perfect. Park Jin-ho arrived at exactly 6:30, as he always did. Maya watched the manager himself escort Park to his usual corner table, bowing deeply as he presented the menu, even though Park never ordered anything different. Maya prepared his customary drink, a whiskey neat with a single large ice cube, and brought it to his table. "Good evening, Mr. Park," she said with a smile, setting the glass down carefully. "Good evening, Maya," he replied, returning her smile. "How are you today?" "I'm well, thank you. Busy with the holiday rush, but that's good for business." Park nodded. "You are working on Christmas?" Maya shrugged. "I don't have family here, so I volunteered to take the shift. Some of the other staff have children." Something flickered in Park's eyes, an expression Maya couldn't quite read. "That is very kind of you," he said quietly. Then he added, "Perhaps after the holidays you will join me for coffee. I would like to hear more about your story." Maya was surprised by the invitation, but touched. "I'd like that, Mr. Park. Thank you." As she walked back to the bar, she felt a warmth in her chest. It was a small gesture, but it made her feel seen in a way she had not felt in a long time. She had no idea that she would never have that coffee with Park Jin-ho, because in less than an hour, everything would change. The restaurant filled steadily throughout the evening. The dining room buzzed with conversation and the gentle clink of silverware against fine china. Maya moved between the bar and the tables, serving drinks and ensuring everyone had what they needed. She noticed that Park had been joined by two other men at his table, both younger and powerfully built. They sat with their backs to the wall, their eyes constantly scanning the room. Park spoke to them in low tones, his expression serious. At 7:45, the front doors opened. Maya was behind the bar mixing a cocktail when she heard the doors bang against the walls with unusual force. She looked up and felt her stomach drop. 15 men entered the restaurant in a tight formation. They all wore dark suits and had a similar build, lean and dangerous. Their faces were hard, expressionless. The lead man, tall with a scar running down his left cheek, held one hand. The gesture was small, but carried absolute command. Everyone in the restaurant seemed to freeze. "Nobody move," he said in Korean, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. "We are not here for you. We are here for Park Jin-ho." Maya's heart hammered in her chest. She glanced toward Park's corner table. The crime boss sat perfectly still, his expression unreadable. The two men with him had already risen to their feet, their hands moving inside their jackets. "Sit down," Scarface commanded, and his voice carried a weight that made Park's bodyguards hesitate. "You are outnumbered. This does not have to be messy." 15 against 3, Park said calmly, his voice carrying across the now silent restaurant. "Your employer must think very highly of me to send so many. My employer knows exactly what you are capable of, which is why he sent us to make sure the job gets done properly this time." Maya realized with dawning horror that she was witnessing a hit. These men had come to kill Park Jin-ho, and they clearly did not care that there were dozens of innocent people in the restaurant. The manager, his face pale and sweating, stepped forward with his hands raised. "Please, gentlemen, if you have business to conduct, perhaps we could arrange a private room." One of the assassins backhanded him casually, sending the manager sprawling to the floor. A woman at a nearby table screamed, then clapped her hands over her mouth. "I said nobody moves," Scarface repeated. He gestured to his men, and they began to spread out, forming a loose circle around a restaurant. Several pulled out handguns, making no effort to conceal them now. "Everyone on the floor. Hands where we can see them." Chaos erupted. People dropped to their knees, some crying, others too shocked to make a sound. The restaurant staff scattered, servers and cooks fleeing toward the kitchen. Maya found herself frozen behind the bar, her hands gripping the edge of the counter so hard her knuckles turned white. One of the assassins noticed her. "You too," he barked, pointing his gun at her. "On the floor." Maya dropped to her knees, her mind racing. She could hear screaming from the kitchen as more of the assassins moved to secure all exits. This was really happening. These men were going to kill Park Jin-ho right here, right now, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. Park remained seated at his table, utterly calm. His two bodyguards had reluctantly sat down at Scarface's command, though their bodies were coiled tight, ready to spring into action, despite the overwhelming odds. "Your employer is Kim Sung-ho, I assume," Park said, conversationally, as if discussing the weather rather than his imminent execution. Scarface smiled, though it did not reach his eyes. "I know you cannot confirm that." "You do not have to. Only Kim would be foolish enough to attack me in a public place like this. He thinks the witnesses will keep me from fighting back." Park took a sip of his whiskey, his hand perfectly steady. "He is wrong about that." "Perhaps. But you are still going to die tonight, Park Jin-ho. The only question is how many innocent people die with you." Scarface raised his gun, aiming it directly at Park's head. "I'm feeling generous tonight because of the holiday. You come with us quietly, we walk out, nobody else gets hurt. You resist, and we kill everyone in this room. Your choice." Maya watched the scene unfold with a mixture of terror and disbelief. She had heard stories about the Mafia, seen movies, but experiencing it in real life was entirely different. The cold calculation in Scarface's voice, the casual way he threatened to murder dozens of people, it made her blood run cold. She saw Park's jaw tighten, saw the muscle twitch in his cheek. He was considering his options, weighing the lives of strangers against his own survival instinct. "Very well," Park said finally. He stood slowly, his hands visible. "I will go with you. Let these people leave first." Scarface laughed, a harsh sound. "I am not stupid, old man. They leave after you are dead and your body is in our trunk, not before." "Then we have a problem," Park said quietly, "because I'm not going anywhere until they are safe. Then I guess we do this the hard way." Everything happened at once. Park's hand shot forward, grabbing his whiskey glass and hurling it with devastating accuracy. The heavy crystal caught one of the nearby assassins in the throat, and the man went down choking. Park's bodyguards exploded into motion, one diving toward the closest assassin, while the other flipped the table to create cover. Gunshots erupted, deafeningly loud in the enclosed space. Screams filled the air as people scrambled for cover. Maya pressed herself flat against the floor behind the bar, her ears ringing from the noise. She could hear the rapid crack of gunfire, the crash of breaking furniture, the thud of bodies hitting the ground. Through a gap in the bar cabinets, she watched the fight unfold in horrified fascination. Park moved with a speed and precision that seemed impossible for a man his age. He disarmed one assassin with a brutal strike to the wrist, then used his own gun to shoot two others before they could react. His bodyguards fought like demons, but they were badly outnumbered. One of the bodyguards went down with a bullet to the leg. The other was swarmed by three assassins and beaten to the ground despite his fierce resistance. Park backed toward the corner, still fighting, but Maya could see it was hopeless. There were too many of them. Scarface stood back from the fight, his gun trained on Park, waiting for a clear shot. "Enough!" he roared. "Stand down or I start shooting hostages." Park hesitated, and in that moment of distraction, two assassins grabbed him behind. They forced him to his knees, twisting his arms back. Park did not cry out, but Maya could see the pain in his face. Scarface walked forward slowly, savoring his victory. "You fought well, old man, but it is over now." He pressed the barrel of his gun against Park's forehead. Maya did not make a conscious decision to move. One moment she was hiding behind the bar, paralyzed with fear. The next, her body was acting on instinct, driven by something deeper than rational thought. She had noticed the sewing kit earlier in her shift. One of the servers had torn her uniform and asked Maya to help her fix it during their break. The small travel kit was still sitting on the back counter of the bar where Maya had left it. Her hand closed around one of the needles. It was 3 inches long, sharp and thin, the kind used for heavy fabric repair. Maya stood up. She was not thinking about the fact that she was an ordinary waitress going up against trained killers. She was not thinking about the guns or the odds or the insanity of what she was doing. All she could think about was that Park Jin-ho, the only person in this entire country who had treated her like a human being rather than an invisible servant, was about to die, and she could not let that happen. Maya vaulted over the bar with a grace she did not know she possessed. Her years of dance classes as a teenager, half-forgotten muscle memory guided her movements. She landed in a crouch, the needle gripped tightly in her right hand. The nearest assassin turned towards her, surprise and contempt on his face. He started to raise his gun, but Maya was already moving. She had watched her grandmother perform acupuncture countless times during her childhood in Atlanta, had seen the old woman's fingers find specific points on the body with unerring accuracy. Maya's hand struck like a snake. The needle punched through the assassin's shirt and sank deep into the pressure point at the base of his neck. The assassin's eyes went wide, and he crumpled like a puppet with cut strings, his gun clattering to the floor. For a heartbeat, everyone froze, staring in disbelief at the fallen assassin and the slim black woman standing over him with nothing but a sewing needle. Then, all hell broke loose. The assassin holding Park's left arm lunged at Maya with a roar of rage. She sidestepped smoothly, her body moving in ways she had not moved in years, driven by adrenaline and desperate instinct. Her hand darted out again, and the needle found another pressure point, this time under the man's armpit. He screamed and released Park, his left arm going completely numb. Maya did not stop. Could not stop. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory, talking about the body's meridians, the points where energy flowed, the places where the right pressure could heal or harm. She had listened to those lessons while doing her homework, barely paying attention, never imagining she would need that knowledge. The third assassin grabbed her from behind, his arm locking around her throat. Maya dropped her weight, breaking his grip just enough to twist in his grasp. The needle flashed, finding the soft spot behind his knee. The man's leg buckled, and he went down hard. Scarface was shouting orders, his carefully planned execution descending into chaos. 4 assassins rushed Maya at once. She could not possibly fight them all off. She knew it, they knew it. But Park Jin-yo was free now, and that was all that mattered. Park moved like lightning. He grabbed the gun from the first assassin Maya had dropped and opened fire with brutal efficiency. 2 assassins fell before they reached Maya. The remaining 2 hesitated, suddenly aware that they were now caught between Park's gun and this inexplicable woman with her needle. Park shot one in the shoulder. Maya's needle found the other's solar plexus, and he folded over, gasping for air. The restaurant had become a war zone. Hostages huddled under tables, sobbing. The bodies of assassins littered the floor, some dead, some incapacitated, all removed from the fight. The entire confrontation had lasted less than 3 minutes, but it felt like an eternity. Scarface backed toward the exit, his gun swinging wildly between Park and Maya. "This is not over," he snarled. "Kim Sung-ho will send others. You cannot run forever." "Then perhaps it is time to stop running and start hunting," Park replied coldly. He fired, but Scarface was already moving. The bullet caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around, but he managed to stumble through the exit with 3 of his remaining men. And then there was silence, broken only by the sound of sirens growing louder in the distance. Maya stood in the center of the devastated restaurant, her hands still clutching the bloody needle, her entire body shaking with shock and adrenaline. She looked down at the incapacitated assassins around her, unable to fully process what had just happened. Park Jin-yo walked toward her slowly, his face a mixture of amazement and respect. He stopped a few feet away and bowed deeply, a gesture of profound respect in Korean culture. "You saved my life, Maya Thompson. Do not know who you are, but I am in your debt." Maya opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Her legs suddenly felt weak, and she swayed on her feet. Park caught her gently before she could fall, his hand steady on her arm. "It is all right," he said softly. "The danger has passed. You are safe now."
But even as he spoke those words, Maya knew they were not true. She had just humiliated one of Seoul's most powerful crime bosses in front of witnesses. She had helped Park Jin-yo survive an assassination attempt. The danger was not past. In fact, it was only beginning. The police arrived within minutes, their sirens wailing as they stormed into the Lotus Garden restaurant. Maya sat on one of the few intact chairs, a blanket draped around her shoulders, despite the heated interior. Her hands would not stop trembling. The needle had been taken as evidence, placed carefully into a plastic bag by a detective who kept staring at her like she was some kind of mythical creature. The restaurant looked like a battlefield. Overturned tables, shattered glass, bullet holes in the walls and ceiling. 8 assassins lay unconscious or writhing in pain on the floor, their weapons confiscated. The others had fled with Scarface, leaving a trail of blood that led to the stairwell. Park Jin-yo's bodyguards were being treated by paramedics, both alive but injured. Park himself was speaking with a senior detective in hushed tones by the windows, his posture relaxed despite everything that had happened. Whatever he was telling the detective seemed to be accepted without question. When money and power reached a certain level in Seoul, Maya was learning, the normal rules did not always apply. A young detective approached her, his notepad open. "Miss Thompson, I need to ask you some questions about what happened here tonight." Maya nodded numbly. "Of course. Can you tell me in your own words what you witnessed?" She took a shaky breath and recounted the events as clearly as she could. The men bursting in, the threats, the fight. She tried to downplay her own involvement, describing it as panic and instinct rather than any kind of skill. But the detective's skeptical expression told her he was not buying it. "Miss Thompson, you incapacitated 5 armed men with a sewing needle. That is not panic. That is training." "I don't have training," Maya protested. "I'm just a waitress. My grandmother practiced acupuncture, and I guess I remembered some things she taught me. I wasn't thinking, I just moved." The detective studied her for a long moment, then wrote something in his notepad. "You are very lucky to be alive. These men are professional killers. By all accounts, you should not have survived confronting even one of them." "I know. I don't understand it myself." Park Jin-yo finished his conversation with the senior detective and walked over to where Maya sat. The younger detective immediately straightened, showing deference that confirmed Maya's suspicion about Park's influence. "Detective Jung, I hope you are not harassing this young woman," Park said mildly. "She acted heroically to protect not only me, but everyone in this restaurant. She deserves gratitude, not interrogation." Detective Jung bowed slightly. "Of course, Mr. Park. I was simply gathering her statement for the record." "And now you have it. I think Miss Thompson has been through enough for one evening." Park's tone was polite but firm, and the detective took the hint. "Yes, sir. Miss Thompson, if we have additional questions, we will contact you. Please do not leave Seoul without informing us." After the detective walked away, Park sat down beside Maya. Up close, she could see the exhaustion beneath his calm exterior. There was a cut above his eyebrow, and his knuckles were bruised and bloodied. "You should see a doctor," Maya said quietly. Park waved a dismissive hand. "These are nothing. I have survived much worse." He paused, his dark eyes studying her intently. "The question is, what am I going to do with you?" Maya's stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" "You saved my life tonight, Maya Thompson. In my world, that creates a bond, an obligation that cannot be ignored. But more than that, you have made yourself a target. Kim Sung-ho will not forgive the humiliation you caused him. His men will be looking for revenge." "I didn't want any of this," Maya said crackingly. "I just didn't want you to die." "I know, and that is precisely why I must help you now." Park stood and extended his hand. "Come with me. It is not safe for you to go home tonight." Maya hesitated, but what choice did she have? She took his hand and let him help her to her feet. Her legs still felt unsteady, but she managed to walk without stumbling. Park led her past the police officers and paramedics, past the gawking hostages still giving statements, past the manager who was arguing loudly with investigators about the damage to his restaurant. A sleek black Mercedes waited at the curb, its engine running. One of Park's men, someone Maya had not seen before, stood by the rear door. This is Chen, Park introduced. He will be your driver and bodyguard for the foreseeable future. Chen was a mountain of a man, easily 6.5 feet tall, with shoulders that seemed too wide for his suit. His face was impassive, but his eyes were alert and intelligent. He bowed to Maya, a gesture of respect that surprised her. "Miss Thompson," he said in accented English, "please, get in the car." Maya slid into the leather interior, and Park followed. Chen closed the door and moved to the driver's seat. Within moments, they were gliding through Seoul's nighttime traffic, leaving the chaos of the restaurant behind. "Where are we going?" Maya asked. "Somewhere safe. Somewhere Kim's men cannot easily reach you." Park pulled out his phone and sent several rapid text messages. "I am calling in favors, putting the word out that you are under my protection. That will make most people think twice before coming after you. But Kim Sung-ho is desperate and reckless. He has been trying to take over my territory for 2 years, and tonight's failure will make him even more dangerous." Maya pressed her palm against the cool window, watching the city lights blur past. "I don't understand any of this. Who is Kim Sung-ho? Why does he want you dead?" Park was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "I run certain business operations in Seoul, gambling mostly, and some financial ventures that exist in the gray areas of the law. I employ many people, and I follow a code. I do not traffic in drugs or human beings. I do not prey on the weak. I keep my word, and I protect those who work for me." "You're a gangster," Maya said flatly. "I prefer to think of myself as a businessman with unconventional methods, but yes, if you want to use that term, I suppose I am." Park did not seem offended. "Kim Sung-ho is also a gangster, but he has no code, no honor. He profits from misery. He loans money to desperate people at impossible rates and then destroys their lives when they cannot pay. He sells drugs to teenagers. He forces young women into prostitution. He is everything that gives our world a bad name." "And he wants your territory?" "He wants everything: money, power, respect. He thinks that killing me will allow him to absorb my organization and expand his empire." Park's expression hardened. "He is wrong. My people are loyal, not because they fear me, but because I treat them fairly. If I die, they will not follow Kim. They will go to war with him." Maya absorbed this information, trying to reconcile the polite customer who always left generous tips with this revelation of his true identity. "Why were you always so kind to me?" Park seemed surprised by the question. "Why would I not be? You work hard, you are respectful, you are far from home and trying to build a life in a difficult country. These things deserve recognition." He smiled slightly. "And perhaps because I saw something in you, even if I did not know what it was until tonight." The car pulled up to a building in an affluent neighborhood, a modern high-rise with a doorman and sophisticated security. Chen parked in an underground garage and led them to a private elevator that required a key card to operate. They rode up in silence to the 15th floor. The apartment Park led her into was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Seoul. The furniture was minimalist, but clearly expensive. Everything was spotlessly clean and precisely arranged. "This is one of my safe houses," Park explained. "Very few people know about it. You will stay here until we figure out what to do next." A woman emerged from one of the back rooms, elderly and stern-faced. She looked Maya up and down with sharp eyes, then spoke rapidly in Korean to Park. "This is Mrs. Han, my housekeeper and occasional nurse. She is going to make sure you eat something and then check you for any injuries you might not have noticed in the adrenaline of the moment." Mrs. Han beckoned imperiously, and Maya followed her into a spacious bathroom. The old woman ran a bath, laid out fresh clothes, and left without a word. Maya stripped off her blood-stained uniform and sank into the hot water, finally allowing herself to process what had happened. She had fought off armed assassins with a sewing needle. It sounded insane even thinking it. Yet she could still feel the way her body had moved, the certainty in her strikes, like something buried deep inside her had awakened. Her grandmother's lessons, half-remembered childhood observations, had somehow translated into deadly precision when her life depended on it. Maya looked at her hands in the bathwater. They had stopped shaking finally. These hands had served drinks and cleared plates for 8 months. Tonight, they dropped trained killers like it was nothing. Who was she really? After the bath, Maya dressed in the clothes Mrs. Han had provided, soft cotton pants and an oversized sweater. When she emerged, she found Park sitting at the dining table with a spread of food. Rice, kimchi, grilled meat, soup. Her stomach growled despite everything. "Eat," Park commanded gently. "You need your strength." They ate in silence for a while. Maya realized she was ravenous, the adrenaline crash leaving her depleted. Park picked at his food, his mind clearly elsewhere. "I have been thinking about your situation. You cannot return to your apartment. Kim's people will be watching it by now. You cannot go back to work at the restaurant, obviously. You are for the moment homeless and unemployed." Maya set down her chopsticks. "So what do I do?" "You have 2 choices. The first is that I can arrange for you to leave South Korea immediately. I have connections that can get you on a plane tonight with a new passport. You go back to America and never look back. I will ensure that Kim's reach does not extend to you there." "And the second choice?" Kim's eyes glittered. "You stay. You work for me. I teach you to refine what you did tonight, to turn instinct into skill. You become part of my organization, and in return, you receive my protection and resources." Maya laughed bitterly. "You want me to become a criminal?" "I want you to survive," corrected Park, "and perhaps to help me finally deal with Kim Sung-ho permanently. Tonight's proved that you have abilities that could be invaluable. With proper training, you could become extraordinary." "I'm not a killer." "Neither am I, unless I have to be. Most of what my organization does is business. But yes, sometimes violence is necessary in my world. I would not lie to you about that." Park leaned forward. "I am not asking you to decide right now. Think about it. Sleep on it. But I need an answer by tomorrow evening." Maya wanted to say no immediately. She wanted to demand that plane ticket and run as far away as possible from this nightmare. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the way Park had looked at her with respect instead of pity. Maybe it was the memory of how her body had moved in the restaurant, powerful and certain. Maybe it was simply that she had nowhere else to go. "I'll think about it," she said quietly. Park nodded. "That is all I ask. Mrs. Han will show you to your room. Try to get some rest. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges." Maya followed Mrs. Han down a hallway to a bedroom that was larger than her entire studio apartment. The bed looked impossibly comfortable. Mrs. Han said something in Korean and pointed to a button on the nightstand, miming pressing it. "If I need something?" Maya guessed. Mrs. Han nodded and left, closing the door softly behind her. Maya sat on the edge of the bed, her mind racing too fast for sleep despite her exhaustion. She thought about her life in Atlanta, the teaching degree she had earned but never used, the ex-boyfriend who had cheated on her and precipitated her flight to Seoul in the first place. She thought about the last 3 years of struggling to find her place in a foreign country, always feeling like an outsider, always invisible. Tonight, she had not been invisible. Tonight, for the first time in longer than she could remember, she had felt powerful. Was that worth the danger? Worth becoming part of a criminal underworld she did not understand? Maya lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. Sleep seemed impossible, but exhaustion eventually dragged her under into fitful dreams of needles and blood and Scarface's cold eyes. She woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee. For a moment, she forgot where she was and why. Then memory crashed back and her heart started racing. She checked her phone and saw dozens of missed calls and messages from coworkers at the restaurant, all asking if she was okay, if the rumors were true, what had really happened. She ignored them all and went to find Park. He was in the living room, speaking on the phone in rapid Korean. When he saw her, he held up one finger, finished his conversation, and hung up. "Good morning. Did you sleep?" "A little. What's happening?" Park's expression was grim. "The situation is worse than I thought. Kim has put a price on your head, 1 million won to anyone who delivers you to him alive. He wants to make an example of you, to show that no one can humiliate him without consequences." Maya's blood ran cold. 1 million won was nearly $1,000, a substantial sum in Seoul's underground. How many people know what I look like? Too many. The restaurant was full of witnesses. Some of them will have taken photos or video on their phones despite the chaos. By now, your face is circulating through every criminal network in the city. Park stood and walked to the window. "I have my people working to counter the bounty, spreading word that anyone who touches you answers to me. But Kim is offering enough money that some will take the risk. So I'm trapped here. For now. But I have a plan." Park turned back to her. "There is a man I know, a master of traditional Korean martial arts and pressure point techniques. He studied under some of the same lineages your grandmother must have learned from, given what you did last night. If you agree to work with me, he can train you properly. In a month, maybe less, given your natural aptitude, you will be more than capable of defending yourself." "And then what?" "Then we go after Kim Sang-ho directly. We end this war before it consumes us both. He has been a cancer on the city for too long. Last night was the final provocation. I am going to destroy him, Maya. The only question is whether you will help me do it." Maya walked to the window and looked out at Seoul stretching endlessly in all directions. Somewhere out there, dangerous men were hunting her. Her old life, as such as it was, had evaporated overnight. She could run, start over somewhere else, spend years looking over her shoulder, or she could stand and fight. She thought about her grandmother, a tiny woman who had fled Gwangju during the war and built a life in America through sheer, stubborn will. She thought about the strength it took to survive as a black woman in Korea, the daily microaggressions and outright racism she endured with quiet dignity. She thought about how it felt to be powerful, even for just a few minutes. Maya turned to face Park. "If I do this, I need to understand something. Why me? You could hire any number of trained fighters. Why are you investing this much in an American waitress?" Park was quiet for a long moment. "When those men came to kill me last night, I made my peace with death. I have lived a long time and done many things I am not proud of. I was ready to go if it meant the innocent people in that restaurant would be spared. But then you acted. You, who had no obligation to me, no connection to my world, no reason to risk your life. You moved anyway because you saw another human being in danger and you could not accept it." He walked closer to her. "That kind of courage is rare, Maya. That kind of instinct to protect rather than to flee. It cannot be taught. Everything else, the fighting skills, the tactical knowledge, those can be learned. But what you have inside you, that is precious. That is worth investing in." "You barely know me." "I know enough, and I am a very good judge of character. It is how I have survived in my world for so long." Park held out his hand. "So, what is your answer? Will you run or will you fight?" Maya looked at his extended hand. This was the moment, the choice that would define everything that came after. She could feel the weight of it, the enormous consequences of either path. She thought about her grandmother one more time, about the old woman's advice that Maya had ignored for so long. Be strong, be smart, but most of all, be yourself and never apologize for taking up space in this world. Maya reached out and clasped Park's hand firmly. "Teach me," she said. "Teach me everything." Park smiled, a genuine expression of satisfaction and something else, maybe hope. "Then we begin immediately. I have already called Master Kwon. He will arrive this afternoon to assess your abilities and begin your training. That fast? Kim will not wait, so neither can we. Every day we delay is another day his people are searching for you. Park squeezed her hand once, then released it. I will not lie to you, Maya. The path you have chosen is dangerous. Some of the things I will ask you to do may trouble your conscience. You may see sides of human nature you wish you could forget. But I promise you this. I will never ask you to compromise who you are at your core. I will never ask you to become like Kim Sang-ho. And if we succeed, if we take him down, then you will have earned your place in my organization permanently, if you want it. Or you will have earned your freedom to leave and start over somewhere with enough money to live comfortably wherever you choose. Park moved toward the kitchen. But that is a long way off. For now, you should eat breakfast and prepare yourself. Master Kwon does not believe in gentle introductions. The rest of the day passed in a blur of preparation. Mrs. Han brought Maya athletic clothes that somehow fit perfectly. Chen drove her to a private clinic where a discreet doctor checked her over and declared her miraculously uninjured despite the previous night's violence. Park briefed her on the basics of his organization, the key players she needed to know about, the rules that governed the criminal underworld of Seoul. Master Kwon arrived at precisely 3 in the afternoon. He was a small man, barely 5'1.5" tall, rail-thin and somewhere in his 70s. His face was deeply lined, but his eyes were sharp and missed nothing. He studied Maya for a full minute in silence before speaking in heavily accented English. "Show me your hands." Maya extended her hands. Master Kwon took them in his own surprisingly strong grip, turning them over, examining her fingers and palms like a fortune teller, reading her fate. Soft, office hands, restaurant hands, but the bone structure is good. Strong fingers. He looked up at her face. "Park tells me you dropped 5 men last night with pressure point strikes. Show me how you stood." Maya demonstrated her fighting stance from the previous night as best she could remember. Master Kwon circled her, occasionally adjusting her posture with sharp taps from his walking stick. Terrible form, balance all wrong. But the instinct, yes, I see it. Your grandmother taught you? She practiced acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine. I watched her when I was young. Master Kwon nodded thoughtfully. The healing arts and the fighting arts are cousins. Both require intimate knowledge of the body's energy pathways. You remembered without knowing you remembered. This is good. This means the knowledge is deep inside you, not just surface learning. He stepped back and suddenly lashed out with his walking stick, striking at Maya's head. She moved without thinking, her hand coming up to block and deflect. The stick whistled past her ear. Master Kwon smiled for the first time. "Yes, very good. You do not freeze, you react. This is important." He turned to Park, who had been watching from across the room. "I can work with her. 1 month, maybe she is competent. 3 months, maybe she is dangerous. 6 months, maybe she is exceptional." "We do not have 6 months," Park said. "Then she will be dangerous in 3 months, and we hope that is enough." Master Kwon turned back to Maya. "You understand what you are learning? These techniques can cripple, they can kill. Once you know them truly, you cannot unknow them." "I understand," Maya said, her voice steady. "Good. We begin tomorrow at dawn, 6 o'clock exactly. You will wear these clothes, you will eat lightly the night before, you will bring water and humility." He tapped her chest with a stick right over her heart. "And you will bring this, the thing that made you jump over that bar when wiser people stayed hidden. You keep this alive inside you, and I can teach you the rest." After Master Kwon left, Maya felt simultaneously exhausted and energized. Park had disappeared to handle business, leaving her alone with Mrs. Han and Chen. The bodyguard stationed himself by the door, silent as a statue. Mrs. Han brought tea and sat with Maya in the living room, pointing at a Korean language textbook. "You teach me?" Maya asked hopefully. Mrs. Han nodded vigorously and opened the book. For the next several hours, the old woman patiently drilled Maya on vocabulary and pronunciation. It was clear this was how Mrs. Han wanted to help, by giving Maya another tool for survival in this country. Maya found herself grateful for the distraction, for something normal in the midst of so much chaos. As evening fell, Park returned with bags of takeout food. They ate together, an odd family bound by circumstance. Park told stories about his youth, about growing up poor in Busan and fighting his way to Seoul through combinations of luck and ruthlessness. He spoke of mistakes he had made, people he had failed to protect. He did not paint himself as a hero, which made Maya trust him more. "You should rest early tonight," Park said as they finished eating. Master Kwan was not joking about dawn training. He is a hard man, but he is the best. Everything you learn from him could save your life. Maya went to bed as the city lights sparkled outside her window. Tomorrow, her real education would begin. Tomorrow, she would start transforming from victim to warrior. The thought terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. She was asleep when the explosion shattered the night. The blast threw Maya from the bed. She hit the floor hard, her ears ringing, disoriented in the sudden darkness. The power had gone out. Emergency lights flickered on in the hallway, casting everything in an eerie red glow. Smoke began seeping under the bedroom door. Maya scrambled to her feet, her heart hammering. Training or no training, instinct screamed at her to move. She grabbed her phone from the nightstand and stumbled toward the door. Before she could reach it, it burst open and Chen filled the doorway, his gun drawn. "Stay behind me," he commanded, his English clipped and urgent. They moved into the hallway where Park was already emerging from his own room, fully dressed despite the late hour. Mrs. Han appeared as well, surprisingly calm for an elderly woman whose home had just been bombed. "How did they find us?" Maya gasped. Park's face was grim. "Kim has more resources than I anticipated. Chen, the stairs?" "Compromised. Explosion was on the 13th floor, directly below us. Fire is spreading." Chen moved to the windows. "We go up." "Up?" Maya looked at him like he was insane. "We're on the 15th floor." "Roof access, then the adjacent building. I have an escape route prepared." Park was already moving, herding them toward a door at the end of the hall that Maya had assumed was a closet. Inside was a narrow stairwell leading upward. They climbed quickly, the smoke growing thicker. Maya could hear shouts from below, panicked residents fleeing the building. Guilt stabbed through her. People were in danger because of her, because Kim wanted revenge. The roof door burst open to a blast of cold December air. Seoul spread out beneath them, a sea of lights indifferent to their crisis. Chen ran to the edge, where a narrow bridge of metal planks had been laid across to the adjacent building, maybe 6 feet away, but 15 stories above the street. "You prepared this?" Maya asked incredulously. "I have escape routes from all my properties. The trick is having them ready before you need them." Park gestured to the bridge. "Mrs. Han, you first." The old woman crossed without hesitation, her movements sure despite the height and danger. Chen went next, turned, and beckoned. Park pushed Maya forward. "Go, I will be right behind you." Maya looked at the makeshift bridge, at the dizzying drop to either side, and felt her stomach revolt. Heights had never been her friend, but the smoke was billowing up through the roof access now, and she could hear sirens approaching, fire trucks, police, maybe more of Kim's men in the chaos. She stepped onto the metal plank. The wind hit her immediately, stronger up here than she had expected. The metal flexed slightly under her weight. Maya forced herself not to look down, to focus only on Chen's outstretched hand on the other side. One step, another. The bridge creaked. Her foot slipped slightly and her heart stopped, but she caught her balance and kept moving. Then she was across, Chen pulling her onto solid concrete. She turned to watch Park cross, his movements quick and efficient. He had just stepped off the bridge when the roof access door behind him exploded outward. 5 men poured onto the roof, guns drawn. Scarface led them, his left arm in a sling from where Park had shot him the night before, his face twisted with rage when he saw them. "Park, you cannot run from this." Park did not answer. Chen raised his gun and fired, forcing the assassins to scatter for cover. Park ran to the bridge and started pulling at the metal planks, trying to dislodge them. "Help me," he shouted. Chen and Maya grabbed the planks, pulling desperately. Metal scraped against concrete. The bridge shifted, then fell,
clattering against the side of the building before plummeting to the street far below with a distant crash. Scarface and his men reached the edge and stared across the gap in fury. One raised his gun to shoot, but the distance was too great for accuracy. His bullet sparked off the rooftop near their feet. "This is not over," Scarface screamed. "Kim will burn down every building in Seoul until we find you." Park stared back at him across the void. "Tell Kim that I am coming for him. Tell him that his days are numbered. And tell him that the woman he fears, the one who humiliated his assassins, she is going to be the one who ends him." Then Park turned and ran, the others following. They accessed the stairwell of the new building and descended rapidly, passing startled residents who stared at these strangers fleeing through their home. Chen led them to the parking garage where another car waited, a nondescript sedan that would not attract attention. They drove through Seoul's nighttime streets in tense silence. Maya watched through the rear window for signs of pursuit, but saw nothing. Chen took a winding route, doubling back several times, ensuring they were not followed. "Where are we going?" Maya finally asked. "To a place even Kim does not know about," Park replied. "A property I have kept secret for years for exactly this kind of emergency." They drove for nearly an hour, leaving the city center behind for quieter neighborhoods. Eventually, Chen pulled into an underground garage beneath an older apartment building. They took an elevator to the 8th floor and entered an apartment that was smaller and more modest than the safe house they had just fled. "It is not luxurious," Park admitted, "but it is secure. Only Chen and Mrs. Han know about this place. We will be safe here while we regroup." Mrs. Han immediately began preparing tea, her method of processing stress, apparently. Chen secured the door and checked the windows. Maya sank onto a worn couch, her hand shaking as the adrenaline began to fade. "He really will burn down buildings to find me," she said quietly. "Innocent people could die." Park sat beside her. "Kim Sing-ho would kill innocent people regardless. It is his nature. You are not responsible for his evil, Maya. Do not carry that guilt." "But if I left Seoul," "He would still come after you. Men like Kim do not forgive. The only way to end this is to end him." Park's voice was hard. "Which is what we are going to do." "How? He has an army. We have 4 people, and I barely know how to fight." "We have something he does not. We have you." Park stood and began pacing, his strategic mind clearly working. "Kim fears you now. That video from the restaurant has spread through the underground. They are calling you the Needle Woman, the black ghost who dropped 5 killers without breaking a sweat. Kim's reputation has been damaged. His men question whether he can protect them if a waitress can humiliate his assassins so easily." "So we use that fear against him," Chen added from his post by the window. "We make him paranoid. We strike at his operations and make him think you are everywhere." Maya was beginning to understand. "You want to use me as a psychological weapon." "Exactly. While you train with Master Kwan, Chen and I will begin hitting Kim's businesses, gambling houses, loan operations, drug distribution points. Small strikes, surgical, but we leave evidence that you were there. A needle dropped at the scene, a note signed with your name. We make Kim see you in every shadow. Then, when he is weakened and paranoid, when his own men begin to doubt him, that is when we strike directly. We take him down and dismantle his entire organization." It was ruthless. It was clever. It terrified Maya to think about being bait in such a dangerous game. But she saw the logic. Kim would not stop hunting her. At least this way, she had some control over the hunt. "When do we start?" Maya asked. Park smiled. "Master Kwan will be here at dawn to begin your training. Chen and I will begin reconnaissance on Kim's operations tonight. Mrs. Han will keep you safe and continue teaching you Korean. In 1 week, we make our first move." "1 week? You said I needed 3 months of training to be dangerous." "We do not have 3 months. Kim will find us eventually. We must move quickly." Park placed a hand on her shoulder.
But I have faith in you, Maya. You have already done the impossible once. You can do it again. The next 7 days were the most intense of Maya's life. Master Quan arrived each morning at dawn and put her through brutal training sessions that left her exhausted and aching. He taught her not just where to strike, but how to read an opponent's body language, how to anticipate attacks, how to move efficiently without wasting energy. Fighting is not about strength, Master Quan repeated constantly. It is about understanding. The body has vulnerabilities. You learn to see them, to exploit them. A needle in the right place stops a man faster than a sword in the wrong place. He drilled her on pressure points until she could identify them by touch in the dark. He taught her nerve strikes that could paralyze limbs, techniques that could render opponents unconscious in seconds. Some lessons made Maya uncomfortable, particularly when Master Quan explained how to kill with minimal force. You may need this knowledge someday, he said simply. Better to have it and not use it than to need it and die. Between training sessions, Mrs. Han worked on Maya's Korean language skills with surprising intensity. The old woman seemed to understand that language could be as much a weapon as physical skills in this world. Maya's vocabulary expanded rapidly, particularly the harsh street slang used in criminal circles. In the evenings, Park and Chen would return from their reconnaissance missions and brief Maya on Kim's operations. They showed her photos of locations, layouts of buildings, explained the routines of guards and workers. They were building a comprehensive picture of Kim's empire, identifying its weak points. He has 37 active operations in Seoul, Park explained one night, spreading surveillance photos across the dining table. Gambling dens, loan shark offices, drug distribution centers, even some legitimate businesses he uses for money laundering. Each one is defended, but not heavily. Kim never expected anyone would be bold enough to attack him directly. Which one do we hit first? Maya asked, studying the photos with new understanding after days of strategic lessons from Park. Chen pointed to a photograph of a nondescript building in Itaewon. This gambling den, it is one of Kim's most profitable operations, but it only has 6 guards. We go in fast, you disable the guards using your skills, we destroy their records and cash reserves, and we leave your calling card. 6 guards? Maya's stomach tightened. I have only been training for a week. Which is why Chen and I will be with you, Park said. We handle most of the fighting. You take out 1 or 2 guards to establish your reputation. Master Quan says you are ready for that much. Master Quan, who was sitting quietly in the corner, nodded. He is ready. Not for a war, but for a battle, yes. He knows enough to be dangerous now. 2 nights later, they made their move. Maya dressed in black tactical clothing that Chen had provided, flexible for movement but reinforced at key points. She carried no weapons except for 3 long needles tucked into specialized holders on her belt. Her heart pounded as they drove toward Itaewon, but her hands were steady. Chen went over the plan one more time. Chen and I go in first, make noise, draw the guards' attention. Maya, you come from the side entrance. 2 guards will be stationed there. Disable them quickly and quietly. Then you join us inside and we finish the job together. They parked 2 blocks away and approached on foot. The gambling den was in a basement beneath a restaurant, accessible through an alley entrance. Music and voices drifted up from below. People were down there, civilians gambling away their money, unaware of the violence about to erupt. Remember, Park said quietly, we are not here to hurt the gamblers, only Kim's men. Everyone else gets to walk away. Chen and Park moved to the main entrance. Maya circled to the side, her breath coming fast but controlled. Master Quan's training kicked in, calming her racing mind. She approached the side door where 2 men stood smoking cigarettes, their posture relaxed, confident in their safety. Maya stepped out of the shadows. The guards noticed her immediately, their expressions shifting from surprise to aggression. One reached for a gun under his jacket. Maya was already moving, her body flowing through the patterns Master Quan had drilled into her 1,000 times. Her hand struck, the needle finding the nerve cluster in the first guard's shoulder. He gasped and crumpled, his arm going dead. The second guard was faster, his gun clearing his jacket.
But Maya was inside his reach now, too close for him to shoot. Another needle, this time to the pressure point under his jaw. The guard's eyes rolled back and he collapsed. 10 seconds. 2 guards down. Maya stood over them, breathing hard, amazed at herself. Then she heard gunfire from inside the building. Maya ran through the side entrance into chaos. The gambling den was a large basement room filled with tables and slot machines. Civilians were screaming and running for the exits. Park and Chen were engaged with 4 guards near the main entrance, trading shots behind overturned tables. One guard broke away from the fight and ran toward the back office, probably to get reinforcements or destroy evidence. Maya intercepted him, her training taking over. She ducked his wild punch, drove a needle into the inner thigh, targeting the femoral nerve. The guard howled and fell, his leg useless. The second guard was faster, his gun clearing his jacket. But Maya was inside his reach now, too close for him to shoot. Another needle, this time to the pressure point under his jaw. The guard's eyes rolled back, and he collapsed. Chen shot another guard, and Park disabled the third with brutal hand-to-hand combat. The last guard threw down his weapon and raised his hands in surrender. "Smart choice," Park told him in Korean. "Tell Kim Sung-ho that the needlewoman sends her regards." They moved quickly then. Chen planted a small explosive charge on the safe in the back office, just enough to destroy the contents. Park scattered documents around the room, evidence of illegal operations that would cause problems for Kim when the police arrived. And Maya, following Park's instructions, left one of her needles on the main gambling table where it would be impossible to miss. They were back in the car and driving away when the charge detonated behind them, destroying Kim's records and cash. "First strike successful," Chen said with satisfaction. Maya felt a wild mixture of fear and exhilaration. She had done it. She had actually done it. Over the next 3 weeks, they struck 7 more times. Each raid was similar, quick and surgical, targeting Kim's operations and leaving Maya's signature behind. Park and Chen did most of the heavy fighting, but Maya took down 1 or 2 guards at each location, building her reputation with each success. The underground buzzed with stories about the Needle Woman. Some said she was a ghost, others that she was a master assassin from America hired by Park. The details varied wildly, but the fear was real. Kim's men began to look over their shoulders, jumping at shadows. Master Kwan continued Maya's training between missions, refining her techniques, teaching her new tricks. She was getting genuinely skilled now, her movements precise and confident. The frightened waitress from a month ago was disappearing, replaced by someone harder and more dangerous. But Maya tried not to lose herself completely in this new identity. She still had Mrs. Han's Korean lessons. She still had quiet moments where she questioned what she was becoming. Park noticed and approved. "You keep your humanity. This is good. It means you will not become like Kim, someone who finds joy in cruelty. You do what is necessary, but you do not lose yourself. This is the difference between us and them." After the 8th raid, Kim finally made his move. Maya was training with Master Kwan when Chen burst into the apartment, his expression urgent. "Park has been taken. Kim's men ambushed him an hour ago. They are holding him at Kim's compound in Gangnam." Maya's blood ran cold. Is he alive? For now, Kim wants to make an example of him, a public execution to restore his reputation. Chen was already gathering weapons. "We have maybe 4 hours before Kim kills him." "Then we go get him," Maya said immediately. "It is a fortress, 20 guards, maybe more, cameras, reinforced doors, Kim's best men." Chen looked at her seriously. "This is not a gambling den, Maya. This is Kim's headquarters. Going in there is suicide." "Then I guess we need a suicidal plan." Maya turned to Master Kwan. "Can I do this, honestly?" The old master studied her for a long moment. "You have learned much, but 20 men is 20 men no matter how skilled you are." "So I do not fight 20 men, I fight smart." Maya was already thinking, piecing together everything Park had taught her about strategy. "Kim wants me. He has been hunting me this whole time. So I give him what he wants." She turned to Chen.
You're going to deliver me to Kim Sung-ho. Tell him you betrayed Park, that you want to switch sides. Tell him you have captured the needle woman and you want the bounty." Chen's eyes widened. "You want to walk into Kim's headquarters as a prisoner? It's the only way to get past his security. Once I'm inside, I find Park and we fight our way out together. I know it's insane, but sometimes insane is all you have. Can you sell it? Can you make Kim believe you have betrayed Park?" Chen was quiet, thinking. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Park has always said I was a good liar. I suppose we will find out if he is right." Mrs. Han approached and spoke rapidly in Korean, her expression fierce. Chen translated. "She says you are very brave but very stupid. She says she will pray for you." "I appreciate both sentiments," Maya said with a weak smile. They prepared quickly. Chen bound Maya's hands loosely, loose enough that she could escape the bonds when needed, but tight enough to look real. He roughed her up a bit, gave her a convincing split lip and a developing black eye. They hid 2 needles in her hair, secured so they would not be found in a cursory search. "If this goes wrong," Chen said as they climbed into the car, "I want you to know that Park would be proud of you. You have become something extraordinary." "Save the eulogy for after we survive," Maya replied, trying to project confidence she did not entirely feel. The drive to Kim's compound felt both too long and too short. Maya used the time to center herself, to review everything she had learned, to prepare her mind for what was coming. She thought about Park's kindness, about how he had seen something in her worth protecting and developing. She would not let him die. Kim's headquarters was a modern mansion in one of Gangnam's most exclusive neighborhoods, its wealth and power on full display. Chen pulled up to the gates and spoke into the intercom. After a tense moment, the gates swang open. They drove into a courtyard where a dozen armed men immediately surrounded the car, guns drawn. Chen got out slowly, hands visible, and spoke in Korean rapid for Maya to follow. Then hands grabbed Maya, dragged her roughly from the car. She did not resist, playing the defeated captive, while her eyes cataloged everything: guard positions, camera locations, possible exits. They hauled her into the mansion, down a hallway decorated with expensive art that seemed obscene given the violence of Kim's business. Finally, they threw her into a large room that might have been a dining hall in a previous life. Park Jin-ho knelt in the center of the room, his hands bound, his face bloodied. But his eyes were alert and fierce, unbroken despite his circumstances. And sitting in a throne-like chair at the head of the room was Kim Sung-ho himself. He was younger than Maya expected, maybe 45, handsome in a cold way, with styled hair and an expensive suit. But his eyes were dead, empty of empathy or warmth. This was a man who viewed people as tools or obstacles, nothing more. "The famous needle woman," Kim said in perfect English, rising from his chair. "I have caused you some considerable trouble. I am almost impressed." "Let Park go," Maya said strongly than she felt. "Your fight is with me."
Kim laughed, a chilling sound. "My fight is with anyone who defies me. Park Jin-ho has defied me for too long, and you have embarrassed me in front of the entire criminal underworld. You both will pay the price." He nodded to his men, and they forced Maya to her knees beside Park. She caught Park's eye, saw the regret there, and gave him the smallest shake of her head. "Not your fault," she tried to communicate, "and we are not done yet." Kim walked closer, studying them like insects. "I had such plans for this evening. A public execution, streamed to all my rivals, showing what happens to those who challenge Kim Sung-ho. But perhaps I will take my time, make it more personal. Perhaps I will make you watch each other die slowly." He pulled a gun from his jacket and pressed it against Park's Kemple. "Any last words, old man?" Park looked up at Kim with contempt. "You have already lost. You just do not know it yet." Kim's face twisted with rage, and his finger tightened on the trigger. This was the moment. Maya's hands, only loosely bound, slipped free of the ropes. Her hand went to her hair, finding the first needle by touch. She moved. The needle flew from her hand with perfect accuracy, the result of Master Kwan's endless drilling. It struck Kim's wrist, hitting the radial nerve. His hand spasmed open, and the gun clattered to the floor. Kim screamed in shock and pain. Maya was already moving toward Park, the second needle ready. A guard grabbed for her, but she drove the needle into her inner elbow, and he collapsed. Another guard raised his gun, but Chen shot him from across the room, his treachery revealed. Chaos erupted. Guards flooded into the room from all directions. Chen fought 3 of them near the doorway, his gun blazing. Maya cut Park's bonds with a knife she took from the fallen guard. "Can you fight?" she asked urgently. Park's smile was fierce despite his injuries. "Always." They moved back to back, facing the circle of guards closing in around them. Maya counted at least 15 men, all armed, all converging. The odds were impossible. Then Master Kwan's voice echoed in her memory. "You do not fight the army, you fight the general." Maya's eyes locked on Kim Sung-ho, clutching his injured wrist, his face purple with rage. He was calling orders to his men, directing them, the spider at the center of the web. "Cut off the head and the body dies." "Cover me," Maya said to Park. "What are you—" But Maya was already running, not away from Kim, but directly at him. Guards tried to intercept her, but she flowed between them like water, using every technique Master Kwan had taught her. A needle to one guard's knee, dropping him, a nerve strike to another's neck, rendering him unconscious. She did not try to fight them all, just moved past them, her entire focus on Kim. Kim's eyes widened as he realized her intent. He fumbled for another gun with his good hand, but Maya was too fast. She covered the distance between them in seconds and drove her last needle into the pressure point cluster at the base of his throat. Kim gasped, his whole body seizing. The needle had not killed him, but it had paralyzed him, his muscles locked and unresponsive. He toppled backward, crashing to the floor, helpless. "Your boss is down," Maya shouted to the guards in Korean, the words Mrs. Han had taught her. "Kim Sung-ho is finished. Stand down or die with him." The guards froze, looking at their fallen leader, at the woman standing over him who had dropped him with nothing but a needle. The psychological warfare of the past month paid off in that moment. These men had heard the stories about the needle woman. They had seen their colleagues fall to her impossible skills. And now they saw Kim himself, the supposedly untouchable crime lord, lying paralyzed and helpless. One guard dropped his gun, then another, then the rest. A cascade of surrender. Park moved among them, collecting weapons, his authority reasserting itself now that the immediate danger had passed. "You have a choice," Park told the guards. "Work for me under a new code of honor, or leave Seoul tonight and never return. I will not chase you if you run, but if you stay and work for anyone who preys on the innocent like Kim did, I will find you." Most of the guards chose to run. A few knelt, pledging their loyalty to Park. Chen secured the building systematically, making sure there were no hidden threats. Maya knelt beside Kim, who could not move, but whose eyes burned with hatred and fear. She pulled the needle from his throat, allowing him to speak. "I should kill you. If you do not, I will hunt you until one of us is dead." "I know," Maya said quietly. She looked at Park, who had come to stand beside her. "What happens to him?" Park's expression was hard. "The courts will not touch him. He owns too many judges, has too much evidence on too many officials. If we turn him over to the authorities, he will be free in a week and more dangerous than ever." Maya understood what Park was not saying. Kim Sung-ho had to die, or this would never end. The question was whether Maya could live with that blood on her hands. She thought about the people Kim had destroyed with his drugs and his predatory loans. She thought about the young women forced into prostitution. She thought about the assassination attempt at the restaurant, about innocent diners who could have died. She thought about the injured people when Kim bombed Park's building, collateral damage in his quest for revenge. Kim Sung-ho was a cancer, and sometimes the only cure for cancer was to cut it out.
Maya stood and walked away, leaving Park and Chen alone with Kim. She did not want to watch what came next. She heard a single gunshot a moment later and closed her eyes, accepting the weight of her choice. When Park emerged, his expression was grim but resolute. It is done. Kim's reign is over. His empire will be divided among his lieutenants, and most of them will probably destroy each other fighting for control. The rest I can absorb or eliminate. Seoul will be safer for his absence. Does that make us the good guys? Maya asked quietly. No, Park said honestly, but perhaps it makes us better than the alternative. They left Kim's mansion as sirens approached in the distance. Someone had called the police, reporting the gunfire, but by the time the authorities arrived, the building would be empty except for Kim's body and evidence of his crimes. Park had made sure of that. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of consolidation and change. Park absorbed the parts of Kim's empire that could be reformed, shut down the operations that could not, and let the rest collapse. True to his word, he offered Kim's former employees a choice: work honorably or leave Seoul forever. Maya continued training with Master Kwan, but the urgency was gone. She was no longer fighting for survival, but for mastery of her craft. The old teacher pushed her harder than ever, refining her natural talents into something truly exceptional. 3 months after Kim's death, Park called Maya into his office at a new headquarters, a legitimate import-export business that also served as the front of his criminal operations. "I have been thinking about your future," Park said without preamble. "You have proven yourself beyond anything I could have imagined. You saved my life twice, helped me defeat my greatest enemy, and transformed yourself from a waitress into a warrior. The question is, what do you want to do with that transformation?" Maya had been thinking about this too. "I want to stay," she said. "I want to work for you, but not as muscle or an enforcer. I want to do what I did with Kim. Find the predators, the people who hurt innocents, and take them down." Park smiled slowly. "A vigilante who works for a crime boss? That is a unique position. You said you follow a code, that you do not prey on the weak. Let me enforce that code, not just in your organization, but in Seoul's entire underworld. Let me be the one who reminds everyone that there are lines that should not be crossed." Maya leaned forward. "Make me your conscience, Park Jin-ho, and your sword." Park considered this for a long moment, then nodded. "Very well. You will have autonomy to choose your targets. Chen will assist you when needed, and Master Kwan will continue your training until he has nothing left to teach you." He extended his hand. "Welcome to your new life, Maya Thompson, the Needle Woman, Seoul's unlikely guardian." Maya shook his hand firmly, sealing the agreement. Over the following year, Maya became a legend in Seoul's criminal underworld. She was the shadow that predators learned to fear, the woman who could slip past any security and bring down the mighty with nothing but needles and skill. She took down human traffickers, corrupt officials who preyed on the vulnerable, and criminals who ignored the unwritten rules that kept violence from spilling into civilian areas. She was not a hero, not exactly. She still worked for a crime boss, still operated outside the law, still made choices that kept her up at night. But she was making a difference, protecting people who would otherwise have no protection. Mrs. Han became Maya's fiercest supporter and closest friend, the old woman's fierce pride in Maya's transformation evident in every interaction. Chen became her partner on missions, the two developing an unspoken trust that came from watching each other's backs in life and death situations. And Master Kwan continued teaching until the day he declared Maya his equal, a moment that brought tears to the old warrior's eyes. Park Jin-ho kept his word about everything. Maya had her freedom to choose targets, generous payment that she funneled into helping victims of the criminals she took down, and Park's absolute protection from anyone foolish enough to come after her. Sometimes Maya thought about her old life, about teaching dreams and failed relationships, and the girl who had fled Atlanta looking for something she could not name. That girl felt like someone else now, a different person from a different lifetime. Maya had found what she was looking for in the most unlikely place, forged in violence and blood, but tempered by purpose and belonging. She had found her strength, her calling, her family. On a cold December night, exactly 1 year after the incident at the Lotus Garden restaurant, Maya stood on a rooftop overlooking Seoul, the city lights spreading endlessly beneath her. Chen stood beside her, both of them monitoring a building where their next target was meeting with his associates. "Are you ready?" Chen asked. Maya checked her meals, 3 sharp points that had become extensions of herself. She thought about the 15 assassins who had attacked Park that night, about the frightened waitress who had somehow found the courage to fight back. That waitress was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone dangerous, someone who would spend the rest of her life protecting the vulnerable from monsters who thought themselves untouchable. "I'm ready," Maya said, and meant it with every fiber of her being. "Let's go to work." They descended into the night, 2 shadows moving with purpose, and Seoul's underworld trembled at their approach. The Needlewoman was hunting, and the predators had become prey. This was Maya's life now. It was dangerous, morally complex, and nothing like what she had planned. But it was hers, earned through blood and courage, and an impossible choice made in a moment of crisis. And she would not trade it for anything in the world.